and I'm going to introduce Maggie Momber now. Maggie's the Executive Director of the Student Partner Alliance in Summit. She went to Swarthmore College, got a degree in history, and then Johns Hopkins for a master's in international relations. And she's worked in government, banking, and as a stay-at-home mom. Somehow she managed to do that in both Germany and France. That's probably an interesting story of itself. Having benefited from all this education, she's been able to adapt and thrive through a variety of career situations, and is passionate about education and helping less fortunate people get good educations. She is grateful for the opportunity to speak today about the Student Partner Alliance, a nonprofit organization in Summit, which positively impacts the lives of nearby urban youth and their families. Maggie herself has mentored 4 students during her time with the Alliance, and she will tell us all about her experience in mentors or mentees, sorry. And with that, I'll let you go ahead, Maggie, and you can introduce Bruce Reitz at the right time. It's all yours.
Thank you. Mitch and Paul, thank you very much for inviting me, inviting us, inviting the Student Partner Alliance. Bruce Reitz is one of our board members and one of my colleagues, and I invited him to join today as well, because he's got some great stories about his experience with mentoring. And thank you, Bruce. And Bruce and I will both speak later on in the presentation about our own experiences, which have been, slightly different, and some things that are the same. So I feel very, very privileged. We feel privileged to join your highly distinguished group that does an awful lot of very interesting things. So this is a real privilege for us. So thank you. Thank you all. I had the opportunity to listen to what the other Margaret talked about 2 weeks ago. And thank you for that suggestion. And I wanted to start by just comparing and contrasting a little bit our 2 organizations, because that would be the first question in my mind. First, what she's done is extremely impressive. And she's working with very similar kinds of students as we are, and that is, this is the similarity. We are both trying to serve populations that are less fortunate in terms of wealth, and are urban, often first generation, sometimes not native English speakers. And in our case, our student population is about 50 to 55% African American, about 30 to 35% Hispanic, and that's the growing part of our student body, and 15% from Africa or from the Caribbean directly, or mixed. So where we differ is the one obvious thing. She's supporting kids in college, in community college, and we are in high school. Our students are exclusively in high school, and we provide scholarships so that they can go to a college preparatory high school. We are probably supporting kids at a stronger high school than some of the kids that she is getting from some of the other schools. So our high schools are in, or our students live in Union, Essex, and Hudson counties, and we serve students at high schools now in Essex. There are 2 of them in Newark, one in Jersey City, and one in Montclair. Now, the one in Montclair is serving the students largely living in Newark, the Oranges, and Irvington. I have never gotten an application from any student in Montclair. So our students are all, urban students and low income. Our program is not merit-based, it's financial needs-based. And the majority of our kids come from families with family incomes of less than 40,000. There are a few with 45, 50 if there are lots of kids or some special circumstance. But largely we're talking about people living in New Jersey, not far from us, on less than $40,000 a year. So those are the, to compare and contrast what you heard about and us. So a little bit of history. I think as a history major, history is always a good thing to have. Student Partner Alliance was founded in 1993 by one individual who lived and currently still lives in Short Hills. So we're really a Summit Short Hills based organization, right in your backyard. And this individual, Tom Cash, this is a little bit myth, I think, but it's close to truth. I like myths too. He used to commute into New York, as I'm sure lots of you did too, on the train. And he saw these kids hanging out on the train platforms. And he thought to himself, well, why are they there? Or they should be in school. And he didn't know anything about education. He was an investment banker. So he set about learning through some of his Catholic colleagues in churches, well, what can I do? What can we do? And he looked first at universities, and he learned rather quickly that there are lots of scholarships available to students in universities. And then he contacted some of the high schools and learned very quickly that there aren't very many scholarships available for a college preparatory high school in an urban area. There may be scholarships available to an Oak Knoll or a Del Barton, but when you're a poorer Catholic school serving primarily the urban poor, there's not that same kind of money available. So he decided that he was going to pay for scholarships for 7 kids to go to a school called St. Mary's, which sadly doesn't exist anymore. But the kids went and they finished and graduated and went on to college. Although we don't have records of that because it was too long ago and it was pre-internet and good databases. But we do know that they graduated. And Thomas is not somebody who toots his own horn or talks a lot about what he's doing, but somehow his friends found out, some of his friends found out about what he was doing, and they said, gee, that's a great idea, we want to help. And slowly over time, really word of mouth, it went from one person doing this to ultimately lots of individuals, and then an organization to back it up, and then to a staff, and then to applying for corporate and foundation support, which we have now. And so it really grew from one person to almost 30 years later, a robust organization that's based in Summit, supporting 180 students in the greater northern New Jersey area of Hudson, Essex, and Union counties. And Tom is still on our board and still actively involved, and he's our eminent screeze. Whenever Tom talks, everyone listens. It's all wisdom. So I thought after that brief introduction to our history that we'd like to start by having some of the students talk, because they say it really best, and it gives you an idea of who are these kids that we're supporting. So we have one school in Newark called St. Benedict's, and we support about 40 kids there, 40 students, freshmen through senior. And they put together a video. This was a Christmas gift and surprise for us. And they're all talking to us. So you'll see that, and it looks a little Christmassy, but if you could just avoid some of the things that aren't relevant, it really gives you an idea of who these students are and why they appreciate our program. So with that, Joel, could I ask you to show the St. Benedict's video?
Hi, at this time of Hanukkah and Christmas, I wanted to take this moment to thank everybody at the Student Partner Alliance for your partnership with us here at St. Benedict's Prep, and with our mission to be a sign of hope to those young lives that we come in contact with every day, almost 900 of them. Without the folks at the Alliance and others of our teammates, this work would be absolutely impossible. And if not impossible, it certainly would be being done on a whole different level. So thank you for your help, for not just helping, but being partners with us in this effort. Be sure of our prayers. as we celebrate this great feast of lights at Hanukkah and the light of the world and our Lord Jesus Christ coming among us, that we can be a light in the lives that are entrusted to our care. Pray for us, as I promised to do for you during these days. Keep your courage up, be well, and stay safe.
This video is dedicated to Student Partner Alliance. I'm grateful for your donors, for your mentors, and I'm grateful for my sponsor who sent me a $50 gift card. I really appreciate that. I'm also grateful for the financial aid you guys give me and that you guys are part of my high school experience. I am also thankful you guys help my parents too as well. And hopefully next year I can meet my mentor and we can have a great relationship with each other. And I just wish you guys the best, and I'm thankful for that you guys are in my life. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
I am extremely thankful for the generosity the Student Partner Alliance donors and mentors have shown and giving me an opportunity to thrive at St. Benedict's.
Hi, my name is Michaela. I'm from Orange, New Jersey, and I am a 10th grade student in the Girls Division at St. Benedict's Prep. I just want to say thank you very much for your financial support and giving me the opportunity to continue my education here at St. Benedict's Prep. My family and I are truly grateful, and this means a lot.
I'm grateful for the Student Partner Alliance and my mentor for their financial support and interest in my education at St. Benedict's. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a happy and healthy New Year. Be safe.
Jersey. Thank you, Student Partner Alliance, for everything you do, from pizza parties at a bowling alley to college guidance on a Zoom call. You are truly the best. Thank you to the donors and mentors who support my education at SBP. May you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Hi, my name is Marcelo Suarez. I live in Newark, New Jersey. I'm a sophomore, and I just want to say thank you for your interest in my education at St. Benedict's.
Opportunity that I need to go to St. Benedict's Prep, the school that I never thought I could go to.
I'm a freshman at St. Benedict's, and I live in Irvington, New Jersey. And I wanted to say thank you to the Student Partner Alliance program for taking an interest in my education.
And I would like to thank the Student Partner Alliance donors and mentors for financially supporting me to attend St. Benedict's Prep. They have given me many opportunities, which are to join sports, clubs, and excel in all my subjects. So I'd like to thank you guys again. Merry Christmas.
I wanted to thank you for donating money for me and other students to be able to go to school. And I also wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
I'm in the 11th grade. I'm from Orange, New Jersey. And I would like to thank you for your financial support and your interest in my education at St. Benedict's Prep.
My family and I are very grateful for your financial support and interest in my education at St. Benedict's. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you and your loved ones, and stay safe.
My name is Janelle White. I'm currently a senior in Newark, New Jersey, and I want to say thank you for your donation and helping me get this far.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Flores, and I am in the 12th grade, and I just want to say my family and I are very grateful for your interest in my education at St. Benedict's Prep. I wish you a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
I'd like to thank Student Partner Alliance, donors, and mentors for allowing me to pursue an education at St. Benedict's Prep.
I'm a senior, and I wanted to say thank you so much for all your support you have given me through all my education. I really appreciate it. Right now, my senior year, I started applying to my colleges that I put on my list. And I feel like I wouldn't get to this point in my life if it wasn't for your help.
Well, I'd like to say Happy Holidays and thank you for supporting me throughout my St. Benedict's years.
Merry Christmas and have a wonderful holiday.
I'm from Bloomfield, New Jersey. I'm very grateful for your support and helping me achieve my goals.
Hi, I'd like to thank you for your generosity for providing me the financial resource for my education.
I'm Michael Morrison. I'm from East Orange, New Jersey, and I attend St. Benedict's Prep, and I just wanted to say thank you to all the donors.
And I would like to thank the Student Parent Alliance donors and mentors for supporting me in my education. I am very grateful. I wish you and your family a happy holiday.
I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking an interest in my education at St. Benedict's Prep, and that me and my family hold you very deeply to our hearts.
Me and my family are very grateful for your interest in my education at St. Benedict's.
Hello, Troy Slade,
current junior from Newark, New Jersey. My family and I would like to thank Student Partner Alliance, the Fred C. Rummel Foundation, and my mentor Joanna for helping me both financially and socially through my education at St. Benedict's Prep. We would like to wish you a very, very, very happy, healthy, and safe holidays. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Okay. There, that's enough. Okay. Well, I played that because we wanted you to see the variety of kids and how articulate they are. And the school is just a great school. That was Father Ed, the principal at the beginning. And it used to be an all-boys school, but those girls, along with some other girls, advocated so strongly to him that they opened a girls' division. And this is the first year of the girls' division at St. Benedict's. Joel, could you bring up the flyer, the PDF? And I'm going to talk through that, but I thought I'd give you a visual as opposed to my head. So our mission was, when it was started and still continues to be, to support motivated high school students at private high schools in New Jersey's urban areas, the 3 counties I mentioned before, with tuition assistance and mentoring to increase their chances for college admission and scholarships, which they need in order to go to those colleges, and ultimately to lead successful and productive lives. So that was the mission when we were founded, and continues to be our mission and our focus today. So our program over the last 30 years, almost 30 years, we have given out over 2,200 scholarships. Over the past 7 years, we've had 100% graduation rates from the respective schools and college admissions. To be honest, they all get into college, and many of them go, most of them go, but many of them face real significant financial challenges. And so not all of them actually do end up in the school that they've been admitted to. We're currently working with 5 schools in 3 counties, and each student is paired with a mentor. So to flip it around, before we continue to your perspective, well, why would you want to be a mentor? And that answer is, starting with, it's fun. Our mentors, many of them come back and do it again, so they must be enjoying it. But more importantly, it does provide a possibility as a volunteer opportunity to provide a positive impact on someone else's life. And you can make a long-term impact by introducing your students to possibilities, opportunities, thoughts that they would never have otherwise. The schools are great in terms of opening up their eyes to other opportunities, but their parents just may not be in a position to do so. And you make a new friend. I'm still in contact with some of mine who are graduates, and so is Bruce, and that's why he's going to talk about that shortly. Joel, could you go to the second page of this, please? Okay. So research shows that student mentees are much more likely to do several positive things. Less likely to skip a day of class, less likely to start using drugs. They have a much better attitude in school. They're much more likely to move on to college, and they're much more likely to assume leadership positions wherever they are. Currently, we have 185 students at these different schools, and they're in the process of or deciding on which college they want to go to. We have a process for applying, which is below, and I'll just go through that before both Bruce and I talk about our own personal experiences. So what does one need to do to become a mentor? It's not too difficult. You have to apply, and the application form is on our website, and I'm happy to send it to you, to any of you who are interested. I talk to you, explain the program, answer any questions. We do have a background check. That's really important to keep our mentees safe, and that goes back a little bit to perhaps why Union County doesn't have a mentor program. There are legal, insurance, and safety guidelines that one needs to follow, and it's taken us a while to develop all of these policies and procedures, and we do follow them very carefully. Safety for everybody is our top concern. So then we provide training to you as mentors and ongoing support, however any mentor needs it. And we also provide an orientation and training to our mentees, because some of them aren't used to having a mentor and don't really know what that means, but we make sure that they do before you meet them. So with that, I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about my own experience, and then Bruce is going to talk about his. So I started in this program almost 10 years ago, and my first experience was when I showed up at one of the schools and I didn't have a mentee, and a girl walked up to me and she said, "Oh, I'd really like a mentor. Can you find me one?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. How about me?" And she looked at me like, "I don't think so. The head of the program, that really wasn't what I was thinking about." But she thought about it for a few seconds and she said, "Sure." And it turned out we have a few things in common, like we're both Capricorns and we're still in touch. She lives in South Orange, East Orange. So we would meet throughout her college days, which was at Seton Hall, for lunch at the Ethiopian restaurant in South Orange. And we'd chat, twice a year about how things were going. She got through college in 4 years with a degree in mortuary science, and and has continued on for there. Just a really delightful African-American. She's African-American. My second mentee was from Ghana, or is from Ghana originally. She's now American, and I can't remember whether she was born here or born there, but the family came over with 3 girls, all of whom have gone to college and or graduated from college. All 3 of them, I think, were in our program. And my mentee was just a delightful girl, put herself together as beautifully as our superstar these days, Amanda Gorman. And when it came to college, I tried to advise her, I tried to help her, but she wanted none of it. She said she was applying to 14 colleges, and she gave me the list, and they were all over the map. And I said, fine. And I mentioned, well, why don't you think about Temple? My son had gone there, and Temple has really good programs in everything. And she had a lot of different interests. So she didn't seem to pay any attention to that. But when she finally told me where she was going to college, lo and behold, it was to Temple. So you just never know when somebody is listening and what they take in. And I think it's a perfect program for her, and she's a junior there now. My third mentee's family came from Pakistan. Again, whether she was born here, born there, I didn't really pay much attention to, but they've been here about 20 years. And she's now a senior at Hudson Catholic in Jersey City, a very bright girl. She's actually in one of those dual enrollment programs that the other Margaret talked about, and with St. Peter's. Hudson Catholic is right up the street from St. Peter's University, and the brighter kids can start taking classes at St. Peter's, I think, as a sophomore, and transition into a few more. And if they're very bright, determined, and hard workers, they can end up with almost 2 years of college credit by the time they finish at Hudson Catholic, which is a huge, huge help to a lot of those families. Now, her father got COVID in April, and that was really very hard for that family. And I saw the impact of that on her, because we get the report cards and she just hadn't finished 2 of her classes. So throughout the summer, I stayed close in touch with her, and she's a bit of a perfectionist, which was, I'm sure, part of why she hadn't finished those classes. And I just said, get something in, get something in. I kept after her, politely persistent. And I said, don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect, get it in. A 60 or a 70 or an 80 is better than a 0 in terms of her GPA. So finally, by September, she did get something in. And that's what you see often with lots of these kids. If the grades fall or are bad, there's often something going on at home. And we as mentors need to be aware that there's usually something behind, and it's not that the kid lacks the motivation. But she's back, she's going, she's continuing with that dual enrollment program with 5 classes, 2 at Hudson Catholic, 3 at St. Peter's, and applying to college. And again, she didn't want my advice. My only advice was, please include St. Peter's in there, because that's pretty much an automatic in. And then there was another girl who arrived shortly it didn't arrive, but arrived in my life. And she also, her mentor had to leave for legitimate reasons and couldn't continue. We like to have our mentors stay from freshman to senior year, because then you really see the kids grow and it's a consistent relationship. And she's a junior now at St. Benedict's, the girls division. And I met her through Zoom recently, and we had a really delightful conversation. And she's so bright. She jumped into this new school and got involved in all kinds of things, a leadership position, interesting program that St. Benedict's has with the Kushner Academy, and also a dual enrollment program with Essex County, I believe, because they're right up the street from each other. And she's from Ecuador. So I have, through my mentees, spanned the globe almost, and that is a representative of kids in our program. So that was my experience to date. And Bruce has been doing this longer than I have. He's mentored more kids than I have. He's a very active member of our board. We are incredibly happy to have him on the board. He organizes for us a golf tournament, our major fundraising activity, and a fun run, which is a lot of fun. And he's turned them virtual this past year and been highly successful. So apart from being a great mentor, he's a great board member and huge help to me and to all of us. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Bruce.
Hi, my name is Bruce Ritz. I'm 73 years old, retired, and I live in Montclair. I guess my journey in student partner started in 1983 when about 4 or 5 couples got together and we ran around Brookdale Park in Bloomfield, and then went over to a friend's house and had a few alcoholic adult beverages and said this was a lot of fun and maybe we should do this every year. And then one guy said, yeah, we should, and we should also maybe raise some money when we do this. So the following year, well, he backed out real quick and said, you take care of this, Bruce. So the following year, we did it at our house. So I forget exactly how many people, but we ran, some walked 2.9 miles. Afterwards, we had the adult beverages, and my wife and some of her friends made a bunch of breakfast casseroles. So we had something to eat. And we collected money again. And for the next 10 or 12 years, we gave some money, not a lot at first, and then it kept growing every year to organizations like the Times Neediest Fund, Salvation Army, AIDS Resource Foundation for Kids, organizations like that. And then I guess it was 1995 or 1996, a woman that I worked with who lived in Newark and knew what we were doing said she heard about this organization through her church called Student Partner Alliance. And she said, you may be interested in it. So I checked it out, and it was something that I thought and that my friends thought would be really good. So we started making that our charity. I guess it was around 2000, I decided that I'd like to be a mentor. So since 2000, I've been assigned 13 students to mentor. Of the 13, 2 transferred to a public school during the process. So really, I was with 11 till they graduated from high school. All 11 were accepted in college. They graduated from high school and were accepted at college. 6 have graduated. The last 2 who I had who graduated in June, one is at Fairleigh Dickinson, and the other has decided to take a gap year because of various pandemic issues. Plus, I've kind of been adopted by another student, another graduate of Immaculate, He was a good friend of one of the students that I mentored. And after he came back, I met him at the Immaculate Golf outing. And he's adopted me. Even though he didn't go through the program, he's involved now. And when I say involved, of these, 4 of these students are mentors now in the program. And they've been mentoring for at least a year. And it really would be 5, but the second student that I mentored lives in Georgia. And if he was up here, he'd be the 5th. So we've got 5 who are mentors. I'm sorry, 4 who are mentors. And one is going to grad school now, and he's also very involved in Immaculate. And he asked me 2 years ago, he said, "I'd really like to be on the Immaculate board. Can you help me?" So I talked to a couple people, and he is now on the Immaculate board as Immaculate is trying to strengthen its alumni relations among young recent alumni. And he's working in that thing and is a very active and respected board member. He also has started a similar event. One of his closest friends was killed in a drive-by in Newark about 4 years ago, and he started. Her name was Brenda. They have a Bree Madness basketball event that he sponsors every March to raise money for a partial scholarship for Student Immaculate. That's kind of the who. The next thing I want to talk about is the what in general terms of what a mentor is. And I think the first thing I want to say is a mentor isn't a father. It's a friend. Most of these students are single family. I can say of all the kids I worked with, I've never talked to a father. I've talked to a bunch of mothers. I always call myself at first and introduce myself to the mother and talk to them and tell them, what I plan to do with their son, and is that okay? And we sort of get some ground rules in that. But you're a friend. You're not a father. You're there to help the student in various things. In the beginning, I would take the students, my wife and I would take the students maybe to a Seton Hall basketball game or a Jackals baseball game, or we never did make a Mets or a Yankees game or something. We did that for a couple of years. And then we realized that at least the guys, while they liked talking to you, they didn't necessarily want to be with you for 2 hours or 2.5 hours. 15 minutes, a half an hour was fine. So what we've decided to do instead of doing those kind of events, not restrict is the wrong word, but I do school sponsored and spa sponsored events. So in that sense, what that means is spa has various things. We have 4 breakfasts during a school year. And if you remember the first picture that Maggie had up there, that was a breakfast at Immaculate. We usually get about 25 mentors come to the breakfast. You're with the student for about a half an hour. They give you coffee and orange juice and Danish, and everybody matches up and just talks for a while with their student. In addition, Student Partner has a food bank event once a year. They have a bowling event. They have a holiday party. I should say all these events that I just mentioned are all on hold because of the pandemic. Hopefully things will be a lot better, but come September and we'll be able to start all those. But that gives you an opportunity to be with your student in person in what I like to call too, a safe and secure environment where you're not in a car where maybe something can happen or anything of that nature. So everybody feels good about that. In addition, I attend school events. I've lost count of how many basketball games I've been to, sitting on hard bleachers, football games, a little bit of inclement and cold weather. Baseball, when Immaculate had a baseball team, my students were on that. I went to there. And volleyball. I never really knew what an organized volleyball event was like, but a student that just graduated last year played 3 years of volleyball. And it was really fun to go watch a volleyball game. It was really, really interesting to see how organized it was as opposed to what we did in gym class when I was growing up. And graduation, go to graduations where there you meet the parent or see the parent again. Maybe you only talked to them 4 years ago, but you see the student graduate and be with other family members. Unfortunately, was not able to go to graduation this year, once again, because of the pandemic. During the course, you get the report card. So every time there's a report card, it's sent to you, oftentimes along with a little gratitude letter that the school organizes with the student to write a little note to you. But you get the report card so you can follow how they're doing. That gives you something else to talk to the student about. as most of the conversations are either text, email, or phone. I haven't really gone to Zoom yet, but my last two students graduated last year, and we have not assigned new freshmen to people. So I have not met new students for this year yet. But we talk about the report cards, the good, the bad. I usually keep a little spreadsheet so I can track how they're doing. And this has facilitated me also to know fairly well the guidance counselors, because if the student has a problem, I'll call the guidance counselor and talk to them and say, what can I do to help? And then I'll encourage the student to do their homework, raise their hand in class, do extra work, go talk to the teacher. I've also talked to the vice principal and the principal at the school about the student. And they've given me some advice and some things that I can say to the student to improve their schoolwork. Okay, what else? Oh, and so that's kind of the things that I do. In addition, just as the outside, I have written several letters of recommendation for school and for jobs. Reference letters have been a reference and have been contacted, people inquiring about what the student was like. And also at one point I had twins, and the twins were applying to Montclair State. And I also was on a first name basis for a while with the Montclair State Finance Office and trying to make sure that the student and their they weren't in touch with their mother. It was their grandmother who was who was in charge. And so I was talking to them to try to get them through that process, to help in that process. So that's kind of what I do. And I guess one other quickie I should mention is, in addition to me, and Maggie said the two events we help run for Student Partner, I've got about 5 friends who are sponsors, because there are people who don't want to be a mentor, but do want to help a student. So these individuals donate money for the scholarship for 4 years, and they're a sponsor. So they don't have any direct contact or relationship with the student, but they are funding the student, and they do receive the report cards and a separate gratitude letter every time a report card comes out from the student too. So they feel like they're part of the student's life, even though they're not directly involved or have the responsibility of being directly involved. And I've had one person who said that over the years they have donated to scholarships for many, many students, and this is the only organization that they ever get anything back, where somebody says, thank you, the person who was actually receiving the money. So that's kind of the prepared remarks I have. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
So the questions come at the end, as far as I understand. And we're almost at the end. Just quickly, I wanted to mention, follow up on what Bruce said about getting one of the students on the Immaculate Board. One of our other mentors, actually our board president, had a student that he had kept in touch with for many years, a mentee, and he is on our board. It's a St. Benedict's graduate, and he's brought in a number of his, I think, fraternity brothers as mentors for students, which is really great. So just quickly before we open it up for questions, this is a great time if any of you are interested in becoming a mentor or sponsor, because we are now getting ready to continue our program virtually for the freshmen. We had delayed this year for 2 reasons. One, we wanted to get the students used to their new school virtually, and 2, to be totally honest, we had to figure out how to do it. But we're going to be running a mentee training at the end of this month, a new mentor training at the beginning of March, and then we'll be holding virtual breakfasts or lunches where new mentors can meet their students. So that's going to be coming. And we wanted to show you some pictures of our most recent graduates and where they went to college, just to give you an idea of who they are and where they've gone. So we'll run through that and then we'll open it up for questions. Thank you, Joel. So we are very proud of them. Many of them have overcome significant challenges to get to that point where they can have a picture like that with a college next to it. So not to be underestimated. So with that, I think Bruce and I are ready to answer any questions.
Thank you, Maggie and Bruce. So as usual, we'll use the virtual hand protocol. Click the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, or maybe it's at the top of your screen, if you have a different kind of screen. And be sure you click the button that says raise hand and not one of the other two hand buttons, because they don't stay up there. So Jim Blinn, you're first.
I wanted to thank you both for your discussion, and was interesting to hear about your mentees. What I was curious about was, how do you select the kids that are going to enter the program?
Well, this year's going to be a little different than usual because of COVID. But so I'll go into what we've done in the past. We have an application which is on our website. It's normally due mid-February, and those were paper applications that come into the office. Myself, other staff, and a team of board members go through the applications. We usually have 3 people looking at each application. And we choose the students based, again, on financial need. And we want to see some kind of motivation. They don't necessarily understand what a mentor is, and they apply to our program for the scholarship. And the schools where we support these students, they know about us, so they hand out the application. And then there are a couple of schools in Newark and the Oranges and in Jersey City that know about what we do. And these are in 8th grade, and they give out the application. So we will go back to something like that next year. This year, we're doing it all virtually, and we have a slightly different format, but that's how they know about us.
So do they just hear about you from their school, or is just pros? In other words, are there only certain schools that actually are aware of your program?
No, when it was on, we're on the internet. So anyone who's Googling, scholarships, we would come up, or high school scholarships. And that would still happen. So I'm getting some calls or emails from people who find us that way. But primarily we are known in Newark at a variety of different schools, and in Jersey City as well. So those, guidance counselors and teachers, give the application to the kids. We have, from Link School in Newark, we get 35 applications usually. So we've averaged about 200 applications a year. And out of that, we're able to accept about 50, or have been able to accept about 50 students a class. And that's how we end up at the 185. So sort of 50 students every year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jim. So DJ Perron.
Thank you. Thank you can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. That was most interesting. Mrs. Momber, you mentioned your first student wanted to have a mentor. My question is, what are the students' motivation? What are their motivations to have a mentor? What are they looking into you? Because is it the money? Is it the support, the moral support, the guidance?
Well, it's not the money, because they have the money already. And we don't expect our mentors to provide any financial assistance. If they're a partner or a sponsor and have also provided the scholarship, that's that. But we say very strongly to everybody, our mentors are not ATMs. So nor are they tutors. As Bruce said, it's really a friend, an older friend with hopefully a little more wisdom in life. So it's more, I think, they may be looking for somebody on their side because a mentor is unequivocally there to provide support, not criticism. Somebody who has a larger or different view on life than their parents or mother, it's usually just a mother, as Bruce said, has. And in this particular, I've had 2 girls now asking for mentors, and that's how I ended up with the other one as well. So I think they see it from their fellow students. In this case, both of them were upperclassmen, so they've seen the kinds of relationships other of their friends could have with their mentor. But again, you're not a tutor and not an ATM. You're there to provide your own life's experiences, stories, and that's what I sometimes do, because I don't know when some of mine are actually listening to me or what they want to hear. And I'll just go on about some of my own experiences, successes and failures, and how I've been, and what they take in or what's meaningful to them. Sometimes you don't know, and sometimes it's surprising.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.
And Lindhorst. Oh, here, asked on you. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Simple question. You have 5 high schools. What are the range of tuition you have to pay for these people? In other words, a year of schooling at your various 5 schools.
That's an excellent question. We have a standard scholarship amount. So their tuitions vary between 5, 6, and 12,000. Now the 12,000 is St. Benedict's, where they provide a lot of scholarship assistance. They have a fantastic fundraising machine. Immaculate's, Bruce is also on the board of Immaculate, has, what is it, 9,000?
Yeah, 8,900.
Yeah. And St. Vincent's in Newark is more around 5,000, 6,000. But our scholarship is standard. It was 2,200 last year. And we, realizing the terrible financial predicaments most of our families are in, we raised an additional $100,000 last year to provide an emergency tuition supplement. So the tuition support we gave this year was $3,200 for each student.
So if it's 2 or 3 times that amount, the schools provide it, or where do the kids get the additional money?
Well, the schools provide some money. There's another organization called the Inner City Scholarship Fund that provides some money. There are other schools have, not their own scholarship, but other scholarships offered through the schools. And it's our philosophy that every parent has to have some skin in the game, and we expect them to pay a little bit. It might be just $100 a month or $50 a month, because some of them really have very difficult financial situations, but something. Bruce, do you want to add anything to that?
No, that's it. Most of these students are writing more than one gratitude letter every time the gratitude letters go out, because it might be to student partner, Tri-County, SFIC, or somebody in the school who I know Immaculate has started. They call it a one-to-one scholarship program, which is based on student partner, where if they get a donor, they'll assign a student to that donor and whatever they're donating. So they are getting multiple money from people because they cannot afford the total tuition.
The St. Benedict's film was the St. Benedict's way of a gratitude letter. It was a gratitude video.
Thank you, Ken. Nolan Ash.
Hi. I'll apologize in advance. You probably know 10 times more about this than I do, but once they come out of high school, we just had a speaker from Union County Community College that blew us all away with what goes on in Union County Community College. I'm sure this is not lost on you, that it's much more reasonable for many of these people that are low income to go to a community college for 2 years and then transfer into a 4-year college rather than go 4. I have a very good friend that mentors people at Raritan Valley Community College, and he has had his first 2 people after 2 years, one went to RPI and one went to Cornell, and they're both superstars at Boeing Corporation. So you probably thought of this long before I have, but it seems like there's a natural tie-in between people leaving your program and not just going to four-year colleges, but perhaps considering going to community colleges?
Yes, and I guess the guidance, I know I talk with the guidance counselors at Immaculate several times for some of the students, and they're the ones that are really recommending where these students can go based on, they know the family, they know the financial condition, they know the schools. So they try to get a number of students into the community colleges, and then we quote unquote go along with what they recommend. But they are at least I depend on them being the expert to sort of direct the student to the appropriate place where they can go. Because also keep in mind, various colleges and community colleges are coming in and doing recruitment, what do you want to call it? Recruitment events at the school. I know when we go breakfasts, we see various things on the wall saying such and such is going to be there in such and such a day. And I know at times the guidance counselor has sent me a note and say, hey, this school's coming. We think this student should go to it. Please ask him to go, because otherwise he won't go. So I'm guided by the guidance counselor in relating to what you're saying.
Thank you.
I would second that. We don't expect our mentors to be experts on the whole college and financial aid process. And we do defer and feel like the experts know more than we do. We as mentors can certainly propose that. And I personally, my daughter did that. So I'm a big believer in the community college system myself. And Rutgers has a program where I think if you get a 3.5 average in community college, you go for free. So I think it's a great idea for reasons. I mean, you could see, and that's why we listed those colleges. I think some of the kids want to live somewhere else besides at home. And I think that's legitimate. Some of them get good scholarship money. Again, that's legitimate. Some of them, despite whatever we can provide and the college guidance counselors can provide in terms of advice, maybe don't make the right decisions. But I think we can all say we've not made some right decisions in our lives. So for a variety of reasons, but it's really, I think, not up to our mentors to strongly advocate, but to support and provide ideas, suggestions and guidance. And we do defer to the experts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nolan. Ed Atkin, can you unmute yourself and ask?
I did. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the Inroads program? Now, my mother did that. Like, it was in Newark, like probably in the late 90s, where she did some supplemental like tutoring with kids on Saturdays. Were you familiar with that program at all?
No, I'm not.
Do you do any like tutoring for the kids at all, or anything like that in your program or group?
No, we don't. The schools all offer additional assistance to the kids, and we feel like they're the best positioned to offer the tutoring because they know their curriculums, they know their kids, and each time I see a report card with a kid suffering, I will reach out to the principal and say, well, I see this with this kid and that kid. And they will say, well, I've tried to get him or her to, attend our additional support. And it does exist in the school. So we haven't offered a parallel program. We have been, we've really stuck to our mission, and without it providing, bells and whistles. I mean, we could have gotten into the business of providing laptops or iPads or things like that, and we haven't. We've kept our money focused on providing the scholarships.
Yeah, in the 90s, they didn't have the laptops and all that stuff.
Right, but they do now. I mean, we thought, well, should we provide our kids with food? I mean, a lot of them are food insecure. Should we provide them with laptops, pay for internet access or tutoring? There's so many different things that they need that we could potentially go into, or additional support we could provide, but we really stuck to our knitting, so to speak.
Okay, I guess that was a different program. I don't think it's existent anymore. That was in like the 80s and 90s. My mother did some work for that, like on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great. And some of the public schools may not have the additional support available that all of the schools where our kids go have. So, and I think that, again, referring back to what Margaret was talking about, some of those kids that arrive at her community college probably don't have or haven't had the resources and support and college level preparatory classes. And that's why they have to provide so much more wraparound support. Most of our kids have had some of that wraparound support in high school, which makes them better prepared to cope with a 2 or a 4-year program.
Thanks, Ed. Tony Canoni, you're up.
Yes, Maggie and Bruce, thank you very much for what you are doing. I hear a lot about challenges, and I realize that these challenges are daunting in some case. Do you have anything that relates to dyslexia? Do you come across any of your students that have dyslexia, and how do you handle that?
Well, we wouldn't necessarily know, but the schools would know when they apply because they would come in with an SEP report, a special ed program. So some of the kids, I think, wouldn't come in and the school might discover that. And again, I've seen that with some kids with, very poor grades. And I would then ask the school, do you think there's a learning issue here, disability or challenge? One of our schools had a special program for kids who had IEPs, that's what it's called, individualized educational program. And I've seen some of them actually then bring in the consultants to develop the IEP. But most of our schools are not well positioned to provide, an extreme amount. So a kid with low-level dyslexia probably would be fine, but high level, maybe not. Bruce, I don't know what, from your experience at Immaculate.
No, the school basically handles that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Bill Tittle, you're up.
Yes, Maggie and Bruce, thank you very much. I was struck by your comment that you wanted parents to have skin in the game. Do you ever run into a situation where the parents, especially with the young women, are negative about their kids going to college or resentful, perhaps? You want to avoid that, don't you?
I've never run up against that in all of the schools where we support kids. It's all about go to Marist, go to college, or it's expected. None of these parents pay this kind of money or any kind of money for them to go to these schools. If they're really not 100% behind their kids and their kids' success. Sure, a lot of them haven't been to college, but they realize if they're applying to our program, and believe me, all the paperwork we ask for, not that I'm in favor of paperwork, but it's a lot of work. They have to work just to get the kid in the program. So they realize that high school graduation and preferably college education, or at least 2 years, is the key to success. And boy, hasn't COVID shown us that. Bruce, I'm sure you have something to add.
No, I ran into one situation with the twins I had that went to Montclair State. They were only there about a week and then they dropped out, and they were like 95% paid for by a scholarship they were given. But their grandmother was afraid of the financial impact of college and wanted them to get a job and help support the family, who a lot of them lived in one house. And to this day, they still live in that one house. But there was a financial implication there why they did not continue through college.
We do. I
broke my little heart, but
yeah. I do see some students, again, because when their grades are poor, I find out why, or the principal writes to me. And recently we have a kid in one school who's having trouble keeping up with her work because in a virtual environment, her little brother's in the room making noise, and or she has to take care of this little kid. And on top of that, her parents don't speak much English, and she's involved in translating and interpreting for them at every step of the way in their attempt to run a business, have a business, and put food on the table. So clearly it can be a hindrance, this need for somebody in the family to have money, but I think Bruce's situation is the exception, fortunately for the kids.
Thanks, Bill. Herb Waddell.
Yes, great thought-stimulating talk. And I admire the work you're doing. You're addressing a group with pretty good life experience who make ideal mentors and so forth, but also a bunch of us who are a little long in the tooth can still contribute something. I haven't heard mention of career guidance. I'm sure that school covers that, but in your dealing with the students, do you encounter students that have an idea they want to be an accountant or an attorney or a physician, and you have an opportunity to give them a little advice, even though it may not be your area of expertise? I'll give you an example. I've had, as a patent attorney, I've had at least a dozen or so young people referred to me who had questions about how they become an entrepreneur, how they can develop their ideas. And in 1 to maybe 4 sessions, I've given them free guidance and advice and helped them develop or squelch their idea. The same is true of many other of our members. They could handle, hey, you got a question about engineering? I worked on one of my grandsons for years and years to get him to be an engineer, but in a half an hour, I could give an interested kid a good idea what engineering involves. And so I'm just wondering if there's any demand for part-time mentoring on a demand basis.
We did run a career fair at Immaculate a few years ago, along with using a curriculum developed by Junior Achievement. And I think that was quite well received by the kids, an interesting experience. But interestingly, I was actually talking to somebody yesterday who was interested in something similar to what you're talking about, a one-off kind of a program. And certainly any of you who might be interested in that, please write me, because in her case, it was engineering and computer science. And like attorneys and entrepreneurship, many of these kids have just never been exposed to that. So it doesn't occur to them.
That's right.
And if they don't start thinking about it when they're relatively young, or at least have an idea, you don't know what you don't know. And I haven't seen anyone say, oh, I'd like to be an attorney. So that must not be present in their communities. Some kind of entrepreneurship, sure, lots of them are involved in that, but in a different way than probably we think about it. So yeah, we might run a program, some kind of virtual career fair later on this spring after we do these virtual breakfasts and lunches. So please write me and let me know if you'd be interested, and let me know what your career was or what you'd like to talk about.
Thanks, I'll do that, and I'll try and get a few other people to.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, we'll circulate your contact information to our members so they'll know how to contact you.
Great.
Okay. John Tomaszewski, you're next.
Yeah, great talk. You really opened my eyes to some of the beautiful work that you're doing. I guess my question is, what's the format? I mean, is it do you make a phone call available? Is it or that I know the kids now, it's all instant messaging. That's the first question. Second question, can you give an example of something that you were of a student asking a question that you think you helped out on?
That you would opt out on?
Help on.
Oh, help out on. You want to start, Bruce?
I'm thinking help out. Most of the assistance is, it's not a direct question, at least from guys. They're not very, male students aren't really talking like that. It's more, I think, helping them focus on studies. I did help one who was having a problem with his coach, and helped him get around that. The relationship was getting kind of sour, and he's getting ready to quit the program, even though he liked to play. I think there was two students I had like that with athletic questions. Nothing life. They have asked me questions about what school they recommend I go to, you know, and we go through that using my experience and theirs in trying to give them some insights in what college life is like. I think they would be the things that come to mind immediately.
And what's the format? Is it a telephone call? Is it?
I've done text, I've done telephone call, and at that point these were taking place. It was at the breakfast, so I would see them there. And I also didn't mention I live in Montclair, and the students I do is Immaculate, which is in Montclair, and I'm not restricted just to those events. If the student wanted to talk about something, I would go to the school and I'd ask the school, hey, can I meet with you, you know, in the faculty lounge or something like that. And I talk to the student for like 15 or 20 minutes and we go over some things. So, you know, it's in a number of that is in person, but it's at the school.
So before, when we could have in-person meetings, we organized a number of activities where students and mentors could get together and either do something like pack and sort food at the community food bank, or play bowling, you know, or do bowling together. So some was, you know, community service and giving back, and some of it was more fun. At this point, and obviously we're not doing anything in person, nor will we until the schools are comfortable with that, and of course the mentors as well. But what we always do is encourage the mentors as part of the first conversation with the mentee to discuss, well, how do you want to communicate? What would you like? Now you may have a preference, and I think the mentors are absolutely able to express their own preferences. So of my two current mentees, one of them I've asked to do something where I could see her, because I find that much more effective. I think it's a lot easier to develop a relationship with someone when you can see them, but she prefers text. Every now and then we talk, but I'll set that up in advance. I won't just call her. The other one I started by proposing that we communicate through Zoom, and she was happy with that. And so that's what we'll do. And I will, again, try and establish that. So there's text, email, you know, talking on the phone, Zoom, FaceTime, WhatsApp, but you both have to be comfortable with it.
Can one more thing I just thought of, when one of my students got his first report card, he called me in a panic. He said, my mom's gone nuts with my report card because it's not that good. Can you call her? So I had to call so I called the mother and sort of walked her off the ledge and saying, this is just the first report card, you know, and he's just making a big step from 8th grade to 9th grade, and you know, he will do better. So that was a direct request.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, John. Larry Cunningham.
Yeah, Maggie, Bruce, that was very interesting. You know, prior to the pandemic, our church used to work out at a soup kitchen that was on the border of Irvington and Newark. And, you know, there would be a lot of times when we'd have a spare minute and I'd look out at the people out there and I'd say, God, how do they ever get out of this environment? How do they ever, you know, avoid falling into all the different traps that are there? And, you know, it keeps coming back to one thing, the difference between a lot of those kids or students in that group compared to like where I grew up is that, you know, in my case, I had a mother, I had a father, I had a grandfather that cracked the whip to make sure that my academics were we're meeting a fairly high standard. So, I mean, providing a mentorship to those kids has got to be crucial. But anyway, I have two questions. So one is, of the students that you've mentored, what sort of, the ones that have actually gone to college and graduated, what sort of degrees did they get? I mean, in terms of what subject, were they engineers, were they lawyers, were they, social workers, or what kind of type of program?
I've had finance, math, and history.
Okay.
No engineering or lawyers or anything at this point. And one guy went a couple of years in college and then went into the Marines and got his degree after that.
Okay. Maggie, have you had any like STEM, science, tech?
Yeah, well, I haven't personally, but we do have some graduates who've gone into, we had one who went to Cornell in engineering by the skin of his teeth, because he was undocumented, and it wasn't until like June that St. Benedict's worked really hard to get all the paperwork through, and he went on to study engineering at Cornell. So we do have some STEM, but not as many as we would like. And mine was the only one who's graduated, has a degree in mortuary science, or psychology and mortuary science.
What Herb was saying is that a lot of these kids have never heard about it before, so they've never been exposed to it. Their parents or their friends or their parents' friends never had that kind of job, so they don't know about it. So
right, exactly.
Career counseling is kind of important. But the second question I wanted to ask was, I just think about our own kids' case. We, particularly my wife, who is a former educator, pushed it really, really hard to make sure that we got the kids on the right framework in terms of what courses to take in high school. Do you have any influence in that area?
It's certainly something we can discuss with the kids. And it's something that the schools will work with them on. We can't push them, but we can certainly encourage them and explain to them why, if you continue with math, this is what what options are open to you. And actually, this new mentee of mine hadn't done a lot of math and science at her previous school, but is all of a sudden just discovering that the current school has that and that she likes it and she's doing well. And I'm certainly encouraging her to, despite my history degree, to focus on that. You can always go back and learn history. It's a little hard to go back and learn calculus or physics.
Well, you got to listen to Bill's talk. That's why.
Anyway, one other thing relating to that, I think keep in mind the size of these schools. Immaculate is like 220 students. They have 2 guidance counselors and they have a principal, a vice principal, et cetera. They know the administration knows these students. They know the students' families. It is like a family, so they know them very well. It's not a big school like a Montclair Township school with 500 kids per class. They're very small schools, and they consider the students part of the family, and they treat them like that, and they know them very well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Can I slip in a quick follow-up question? Since you mentioned the issue of being undocumented, has that been an issue with either students or parents interested in your program being undocumented?
We don't ask.
Good.
It's not, there's no law that requires us to ask, so we don't.
Yeah, okay. Well, Miguel, where did you go? You were going to ask the next question.
You just asked my question. But I just, instead of asking the question, I just want to comment. I think you're doing great. I did something like this earlier in my life with Aspida, an organization that maybe you know of. We had children, boys in my case, in high school. We had some who were identified as problem children. One guy showed us some drawings that he was doing, and we talked with him and worked with him, and he became an architect after graduating high school and getting into college. So that was one of the very successful examples. But the job description that I perceive is that it's sort of having a life coach, somebody to translate what's going on out there into something you could understand, and also opening your vista so that the boys who want to become mechanics, you ask them why not an engineer, and they don't know the difference between an engineer and a mechanic. So that's why they don't want to be engineers. They don't know, like you said earlier, what they don't know. So that is also a very important feature. Plus, somebody who teaches them by example, a little bit of conflict management when they have a problem. You ask them the right questions, they learn that there's something other. There are ways to manage conflict. So I appreciate what you're doing. And Paul, thank you for taking my question.
Okay, so Walt Meissner.
Yeah, I apologize. I got kicked off of Zoom several times. I had trouble getting on. Maybe you covered this, or maybe the question was answered. But are these students given any kind of like aptitude test or skills assessment to find out what they're really good at?
That would vary from school to school. That's not something we do. And I think some of the schools may have the resources for that, and some of them probably don't.
I see. Do you look at that and take that into account, or?
Well, our program is financial aid needs, not merit-based. So
I see.
we certainly wouldn't take a look at that in terms of admitting the students.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you would try to steer them in a direction that's best suited for their abilities and interests and things like that.
Well, I think that's what the schools do.
Okay, the schools do that.
We're a partner to the school, but we feel like we don't want to step on their toes in their areas of expertise.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well,
good question.
Yeah. Okay, so there are no more hands raised, and it's actually 11:31. Amazing. But you do, they've agreed to stick around a couple more minutes in case there's one final question anybody wants to ask. And if not, I think we're going to hand the microphone back to Mitch Erickson, who himself will probably have a final point or two to make.
Well, I would just like to say on behalf of Bruce and myself, thank you very much for inviting us to join you, for all your interesting questions. And if anything comes up afterwards, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mitch.
Okay. Well, thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Bruce. Before we close out, I'm going to use executive privilege and ask you, Maggie, or Bruce, or both. You've talked about what mentors don't do. You're not surrogate fathers. You're not tutors. You're not guidance counselors. You're not doing anything the school does. In a few words, what do mentors do?
You're an adult talking to the student that is not a member of the direct family, and from a male standpoint, you may be the only male in the household, or around that they can ask different things to. And I know one of the students always said that I was always around. The other part is, once again, from a male standpoint that are involved in sports, they like to see a family member there. Well, a lot of families can't get there. They might be working or they don't have a car. So they really appreciated the fact that I was there numerous times. And tradition was shake my hand before the game started, or come and talk to me after, or something. So you're another adult influence in their life that they can talk to. Whether it's a deep question or just another sounding board. And also what you do is you encourage them to do things. You remind them, homework, participate in class, behave yourself, don't do anything stupid, dislike something else. It's another adult reminding them what their parent may have been saying to them.
I think Miguel put it perfectly. A life coach, translator, and opening vistas on top of what Bruce just said. So Miguel, thank you for that great summary.
Well, if I was to join up as a tutor, one question that I would hate to get into, or one topic, would be sex. And unfortunately, that's necessary. I don't know if it's ever come up with either of you, but it's certainly front and foremost on a 16-year-old's mind. So I'm kind of suspecting that that might come up, and I, you know, it's if it comes up, I'll certainly handle it, but it wouldn't be one of my top 10 things I'd really want to talk about. Anyway, with that, I think we'll close this out. We have a couple of ways of thanking you, and Joel will show your virtual certificates, both of you here. And we have the certificate, and we'll email it to you, and we'll make you print it and put it in a frame and put it on your wall. But anyway, you'll notice on the left-hand side, there's a red thing that's an orchid. And we are the Summit Old Guard. And originally we were all in Summit, and now we're scattered all over, but we still maintain that anchor. And the Summit was in 1930, when we were founded, was the orchid capital of the world. Not cut orchids that you use for corsages, but the ones that people collect and grow. And they had all the exotic ones that cost lots and lots of money, and a catalog, the whole deal. Anyway, that's why we've adopted the orchid as our symbol. And the other thing is, you're certainly welcome to stick around and have Bill tell you all about calculus. And you know, he told us that you didn't have to know about calculus to do it. So you're welcome to stick around. You're also welcome to go off. You've given us a lot of your valuable time. We thank you so much. And the final way we do this is we call an Old Guard salute. And in the real in-person meetings, it was standing ovation, but now it's just an ovation. So thank you very much. Yay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.